Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to Stage Right. Get this microphone closer so you can hear me. That's it. Although they can hear me in, the next state. Everybody, welcome to Stage Right. I was going to record this the other day, but my basement flooded, and there was water coming all in over to my left there, and it sounded like I was live on remote from Niagara Falls. So I decided to wait until that was fixed, so you can just listen to my dulcet tones without having to listen to the waterfall. It may make you want to get up and use the restroom and things like that. Anyway, well, as I said, this is Stage Right. We are the show that talks about the arts, and the arts' impact on culture, and how we, on the more conservative, traditionally minded side of the ledger, are trying to return to a little sanity in the arts and really just get a place at the table, because we've ceded a lot of artistic and cultural territory to the left. And we're here to combat that. And so I told you that this show is not the news of the day, but I have to start today with some of the news of the day. It's not even new news. It's old news already, and it's the Olympics and that famous Last Supper with inexplicably the Smurf character, that blue guy who was supposed to represent Dionysus, and the Last Supper depiction with all transgenders and all kinds of other oddities. And this, of course, was presented in Paris, France. I am not going to spend a lot of time talking about that. As I said, you could find that commentary online in other podcasts. No doubt people have been talking about it for days. When this is being recorded, it's already a few days after that happened, after the opening ceremonies. But I want to talk about the aftermath of this. Look, everyday people are disgusted by this, right? I'm seeing all kinds of social media postings that's it, I'm boycotting the Olympics. Never going to go back to the Olympics. I'm not watching these Olympics. You know, I think that's a healthy attitude. I don't want to punish our American team, though, Team America, Team USA. I don't want to punish them for the bizarre antics of the French and their Olympic committee, who said, by the way, well, we didn't mean to offend. We're sorry if you're offended. You know, that kind of half apology. Sorry if you're offended, but we had an objective to show all kinds of diversity, and we succeeded. Oh, yeah, you succeeded, all right. People are turning off the Olympics in droves. You succeeded. So, as I said, everyday people are disgusted by this, and there are a lot of everyday people around. And so a lot of people are really just turned off by this. I don't know if is it that we're not ready as a society to see something like this. And of course, there's some on the left who said it didn't go far enough, but it's a nice start. I hope it's a start and an end, because obviously, if they want to parade around like that, that's one thing. But it's another thing when you are depicting a religious observation or a religious moment, a very important religious moment like the Last Supper, and to make fun of it is just not, I think, proper. You'll notice that there were no depictions of a transgender Muhammad. Do you notice that? Why is that? There's tons of Muslims living in France. Why not represent them? Because if they did that, there would be bombs in the Olympic Village, because the Muslims would not stand for it, because you can't blaspheme Allah or Muhammad. All right? But for some reason, cultures of the West, particularly European culture, American culture, fair game, right? We'll make fun of it. We'll show you we're here and we're not going anywhere. Well, you know something? We on this show are here and we're not going anywhere either. So you're going to have to contend with us every bit as we have to contend with you. So yeah, it was just all a greater example, or the latest example of our institutions under attack here in this country. Even though it was done in France, where of course they're always, a little avant-garde, and they're always trying to push the envelope. What they should do is push to have a fighting force that actually fights wars. Then they'd be okay. I mean, they're just a bunch of French cowards. And but at any rate, why should I go on that diatribe? So it was performance art. Let's not kid ourselves. It was a political statement, no doubt. It was a cultural statement, no doubt. But it was also performance art. And so we at Stage Right are very interested in that. It is indeed performance art. They made a statement through the arts. Okay? Whether that statement is, we're here to stay, we're not going anywhere, pay attention to us, we're on the margins of society, but we count too. Whatever that message was, they decided to do it through art, through a performance art style. Why don't we? Why don't we? Why don't we on the right? This is the question I ask all the time. Why don't we on the right do the same thing? Why aren't we showing our beliefs, our values, the ones that I think most of America agree with? Why are we not putting that out as performance art? Or on stage in some other fashion? Because theater is my interest in particular. Why aren't we doing that? I don't mean putting out the 10 Commandments sign in your yard. That's not performance art. That's a very nice thing to do, but it's not performance art. Okay? It's just a sign. I see those all the time. Not necessarily the 10 Commandments, but I see excerpts from Scripture, or I will see Jesus Saves, which is good if you see my bank account. But, there is, that's not really performance art. This was performance art. I mean, what do I mean by that then? What can we do? That's the question we have to ask here and try to answer here on this show. Not just complain about it. What are we doing about it? What can we do? If we're just sitting back and bitching about it, we're doing nothing. Well, I think we should start patronizing cultural events that support our institutions. What institutions are those, you may ask? Things that support the family and family values. Things that support faith. And I think I told you that I was writing an article for the Epoch Times about the lack of attendance at churches and the lack of attendance at theaters, and why I think they are parallel. And maybe sometime we can do a whole show about that. But you should check that out if you're a subscriber to the Epoch Times. It's the article that I wrote, came out about 2 weeks ago, so that would be around mid-July when that came out. And perhaps you could take a look at it and maybe make some comments. I had a lot of comments on this article that I wrote. But we need to start considering things like attending church as a cultural event. We need to embrace institutions and ideas like small government. Okay? We need to find ways to support that through every method that we have, everything at our disposal. And one of the things we have at our disposal, believe it or not, is the arts. We do have that ability. And you may say, well, conservatives say, we don't bother with the arts. It's not a something that we're going to make a lot of money, or it's a nice hobby, but it's not a vocation, and all these kinds of things. And that may be true, but if we're not going to get involved in the arts in some way, if conservatives are not going to go back to the pews, let alone the theater seats, we're going to be on the losing side. We continue to be on the losing side. So we've got to make an effort to patronize the arts that support what we want to do and what we believe and what we think about this country. And the arts, Hollywood's not supplying that, right? And theater is not supplying that. And many of our cultural institutions, like symphony orchestras, are very woke now. And so we are not getting the support we need, but we have to show up. So I want you all to show up. What can you do? Create something. Who says that conservative or traditionally minded people aren't creative? Of course we are. We're just sometimes afraid to make our beliefs known in the world of the arts, lest we be, I don't know, unfriended on Facebook. Who cares? Who cares? Right? Unless we are, worried about our own livelihoods. But we should do it. Write a poem. Poem. I like to pronounce it fancy. Poem. Because when you're from New York, you say poem. P-O-M-E. Poem. Okay. Write a poem. Right? Write a play. Write a story. Support our point of view. Write a story and share it with your friends who might say, yeah, you know what? This is a nice story. Maybe I'll share it with this person. Write a little play. You don't have to rent out Radio City Music Hall to put on a play. There's other ways you can do it. And I meet lots of people. I do meet people who are conservative-minded people who say, I want to try my hand at playwriting. Do it. Do it. Look, it can't be any worse than some of the stuff I read. People sending to my theater company, and it might be very, very good. I had a guy at a theater festival that I did. I do an annual theater festival, and this one was a few years ago, and this guy had come to one of my shows, one of my festivals earlier, and the next year he presented this play. It was a good play. This guy wasn't a playwright. It was a good play. We put it on. Got a lot of people who enjoyed it. So you never know the hidden talent, right? But if you're so inclined, do it. Do it. Art reflects, I want you to think about this. Art reflects not only the individual artist, but also the culture that creates that individual artist, right? Artistic and philosophical movements define and reinforce the culture that produces them. So, why wouldn't we want to get our voice out there to combat the monolithic voice of the left that is defining our arts and our culture and our institutions in many ways, and really destroying what we once had. And what we once had, look, I'm going to say it. I don't care if I get hate mail. I'd love it, actually. What we once had was good. What we once had was true. Now what do we have? A relative universe of meaninglessness. Great. We're going to talk more about that in a minute, by the way. Well, we're going to talk about it now, actually. The whole idea of a philosophical movement defining a culture, reinforcing a culture, and impacting the art of that culture. Let's take a look at one example, existentialism. Do you know what that is? Existentialism? It's a predominant philosophy of the middle to latter part of the 20th century, although it has its roots a little earlier. But it is essentially a philosophical point of view that says existence precedes essence. Okay, existence precedes essence. And what do they mean by essence? Well, they mean some kind of God or some kind of an objective world voice, world order. What the existentialists say is that there is no such thing, that we create our own meaning on earth, and otherwise life there's no meaning to it. There is just this idea that we create everything. And in two ways, this has an opposite effect on people. On the one hand, it's very liberating for some because the existentialists say we are basically free. We are totally free to do whatever we please, in whatever manner we please to do it. And that is a very liberating thing. By the same token, because of that, we are often within the world of anxiety, dread, and terror. Because what are the ramifications of what I'm going to do? I don't know. So I have to exist in a world where nothing is preordained for me, nothing is guiding me except me. Well, it's a very selfish movement, and you can hear echoes of it even in Shakespeare. But it wasn't a defining philosophical movement then. When did it come into prominence? Well, in the 20th century. What went on in the 20th century, particularly in Europe, right? The Germans, the French, Jean-Paul Sartre. It's another name I love to say. Love to say it like I do Bertolt Brecht. I also like to say Jean-Paul Sartre. Because people think I studied at the Sorbonne when I say it that way. The Sorbonne. Yeah, you know I went there. And basically, this movement was created because of the destruction of the world in World War I. I mean, people don't realize, right? We always think, I was in the big war, WW2. Well, WW1 was the war that ended all wars, right? The war to end all wars, because it was unlike any war that had come before, because of the chemical warfare and the introduction of airplanes. Imagine, there you are in your country, and airplanes with bombs are flying over your head. So it's not just the slow advance of the infantry. It is this methodical bombing that can occur, and chemical warfare. And World War I was just that atrocity. And people lost their faith in many institutions in Europe, and of course it, made its way across the pond, but people were feeling that the world had gone mad. And then comes World War II with all of its destruction and the Holocaust. And people are saying, how can we have faith in anything bigger than us? If there is a God, how could he allow this to happen? So apparently it is our free will that created the situation, that caused the wars, etc. There's no guiding force. And existentialism and that philosophy led to, in the theater, what's called the theater of the absurd. Now, that term wasn't coined until, I think, the early 1960s by an essayist named Martin Esslin, but he was pointing to some of the playwrights who were working at the time, Samuel Beckett, not the guy from Quantum Leap, Samuel Beckett, Eugene Ionesco, and others who, Arthur Pirandello, who, Europeans all, who posited that the world is just mad. There is no rhyme or reason to the world, and we therefore must infuse the world with meaning that does not exist outside of us. All right? And if you see that as depressing, it is. But you want to know something that really depresses me? I don't care that they have a philosophical movement like that. That's just a point of view. No problem. But the problem is when that comes to define an age, and that has come to define our art in so many ways, even if it's not as overt as it used to be, we still have echoes of that misery, of that terror, of that anxiety, of that, as Sartre said, hell is other people. That is what we still bring with us today. So that's why Samuel Beckett, who is the leading absurdist, and a guy who would forward existentialism through his work, that's why somebody like that retains his royal seat in the theater terra firma. I don't even know if that made any sense, but you know what I'm saying, that he is such an important figure. And he is an important figure. And you don't have to like him. You just have to know that he existed and what he did. But there are echoes of his work that continue today. And basically it's saying think of Waiting for Godot, his masterpiece, right? We are just adrift. There is nothing out there in the landscape to please us. We just have ourselves and maybe another companion. And that's it. And that's it. And we do meaningless things until we die. So, we don't want things like that, even though that message is still with us. We don't want that to be the dominant narrative, especially in a country like America, right? Where every institution, every philosophical belief that created this nation is opposed to that kind of thinking. So we should not be supporting that in any way. And that's what American artists are doing. Okay? Again, maybe it's not overt existentialism anymore. But what it is this depiction of the world as a miserable place. And the new layer on that is America is a terrible place. Okay? You'll notice all the people who are saying America is a terrible place never leave America to find or found something better. And I think that's an important point. I like myself for saying that. Because these people never go out and find something new, create something new. All they do is complain. Right? Well, we've got to be better than that. And we are better than that. So we have to understand that when this dominant narrative is created, it may not reflect the feelings and beliefs of the population at large, but it becomes an artistic narrative that defines us. And I've always said that 1,000 years from now, when space aliens come and study, or anybody studies what we were like in the early 21st century, the first quarter of the 21st century, they're going to say, wow, things were rotten. The country was bad. The people were diametrically opposed to each other. There was these institutions that they had built had fallen down. Woe is me. Why are we letting that happen? The only way we're going to combat it, folks, is with our voices on paper, on the internet, or however you do it, virtually, and by attending these cultural events. And if we don't like it, we say so. We don't shrug our shoulders and say, yeah, well, you know, that's art today. Gee whiz. No, we say we don't like it. We don't want to see anything like that. And, you know, that sometimes does work. It's been working a little bit. Hollywood maybe starting to get the message. I don't want to put that too far out there, but they might be getting the message. A majority of people, if we don't open our eyes and open our mouths and open our hearts to what America believes, not what the Europeans believe because their cities were bombed out of recognition. If we continue to just shrug our shoulders, a majority of us are just going to become marginalized and ultimately dismissed or made fun of. And think about it. Look at the people. Just think about traditionally minded conservative people in the arts. How are we treated? We're petrified to open our mouths. Not me. We're petrified to open our mouths. We're petrified to put anything on paper. If we do, it's got to be, well, it's got to be tempered. It's got to be, it's got to have a little bit of both sides. I'm not interested in the other side. That's all I get is the other side. We need to be equal time. We are equal time. If it's really going to work, we have to have a seat at the table. Okay? And we shouldn't compromise our beliefs just to get along. Okay? I'm from New York City. I don't mind a little fight. I don't want to fight. But I want to stand up for what I believe. And I want people to take that seriously. And I don't want to be dismissed, and I don't want to be marginalized, and I don't want to be made fun of. And you know something? I told you this last time. The only people in the arts who are marginalized are the conservative, traditionally minded people. And yet the arts are for everybody, aren't they? We've got the wrong people controlling the arts. So we need to be active. That's what the message of this today's edition of Stage Right is. We need to be active. I gave you some remedies, right? We need to stop being weak, and we have to stop acting as victims. We have to stop shrugging our shoulders and say, either A, well, you know, that's the way it is, or B, well, I'm just not going to go. You need to reject that victimization. If you choose not to attend cultural events, and listen, I get it. I don't want to spend $150 a ticket to have my beliefs and values mocked. Got it. But not every ticket costs $150. Okay? But we have to reject victimization. That's not what Stage Right is about. Remember, the natural theater rejects victimization. We don't want protagonists who are victims. Oh, I'm such a good person, but they don't understand me. They've been mean to me. Society is against me. They don't like me because of the color of my skin. They don't like me because of who I sleep with. They don't like me because of who I identify as, or what I identify as, or my pronouns and my adjectives and my adverbs. That's not it. That's not it. Okay? We don't want that in Stage Right. You can have it elsewhere. We don't want it in Stage Right. We want protagonists who are proud to be who they are, do not feel the world is against them, and actually are quite heroic. Oh boy. All right, so these are some of the things we need to do. You need to critique things you see and offer your own perspective. Write a letter to the studio. Write a letter to the theater company. Whatever it takes. Talk amongst yourselves. Go to a cultural event and talk about these things. Hey, I saw this show and I thought it sucked, and here's why. Okay? In all of this, we must allow the other side its existence. See, we're doing it wrong if we say, we exist now, we're the people to pay attention to, and you guys are gone. No. We have to say, you guys can sit here, and you know what? We'll sit here. And we'll all be together. And maybe we won't agree, but we can all agree that we are putting on art. Some better than others. And we can all use the motto that Stage Right Theatrics came up with. Our trademark motto, disagreement does not equal hate. Now, let me give you a quick example before we have to go here. Do you remember, it's about a year ago now, do you remember a song called Rich Men North of Richmond? Do you remember that? By Oliver Anthony? Yeah, that guy, he got out there with his guitar and he sang this song, and the conservatives went bonkers because this was finally somebody who was saying what we believe. And I have to admit that I was on that bandwagon at first, but I'm not anymore. And it took me not long to stop being on that bandwagon. Okay, of course, the left hated it, right? They hated it. I don't know why, though, because if you listen to some of the words, let me read you some of the words of Oliver Anthony's Rich Men North of Richmond. Okay, I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for BS pay. I don't want to say bullshit. It's not nice. Okay, so I can sit out here and waste my life away, drag back home and drown my troubles away. I do like the way he rhymes away with away. And right there, when I finally listened to the lyrics, I said, wait a minute. He's blaming others for his plight. He doesn't make enough money. Get a different job. Mr. Anthony, if you're not making the kind of money you feel you deserve, get another job, get yourself some skills, and find another position. If it's not good where you are, move. I know it's very easy for me to say, but for God's sakes, what's the point of sitting there and belly aching about it? Right? And by the way, Oliver Anthony absolutely disagreed with the idea that he was any kind of conservative. Okay? But and I agree with him because he's presenting these sort of conservative ideas, maybe, in a very left-wing way. And what did I mean by that? I'm a victim. Poor me. And now they're forcing me to go home and get drunk. They're forcing me to do that. Ha! Ha! Nobody's forcing you to do that. That's your decision. It's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me and people like you. Okay? It almost sounds like Mr. Rogers. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is, oh, it is. And the rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they just want to have total control. Okay? So my point is here that I am not sympathetic to Oliver Anthony. Because while you may be saying some of the right things, whose fault is that? Take the blame on yourself, Mr. Anthony. And we haven't heard from Oliver Anthony since then. Maybe people wised up. Nice try. Anyway, we're at the end of our time together. If you'd like to contact us, it's stagert.org. That's our website, stagert.org. Or if you'd like to contact us, it is stageright826, stageright826 @gmail.com. Go to my website, stagert.org, and take a look at the ways to support us. I have a play coming up I'll tell you about next time. And until then, please remember that you need to do something, take action, not just bellyache, and don't forget that disagreement does not equal hate. And I will see you next time.